I'm Lahn-Schroeder, and I'm a feminist. However, I didn't always call myself a feminist. I used to reject the label and felt uncomfortable when anybody would call me a feminist. But then I started to question my discomfort and began researching the feminist movement. There have been 3 waves of feminism, each revolving around issues regarding women and now other marginalized genders. Betty Friedan and Gloria Steinem are seen as the 2 founders of second wave feminism, focusing on women being more than the wife of a man. Many followed, but as they get older, it is important for the next generation to become involved and interested in gender equality. So why do I, Izzy, a social justice geek, have trouble calling myself a feminist? I automatically associate the word with people who hated men and people who didn't shave their legs. And if you don't shave your legs, go you. That's totally fine. However, there were a lot of negative connotation with the word. I wondered if other young people had an issue with the word and why. So I decided to make a documentary. Through interviews with awesome Jewish feminists, peers, and strangers, I have answered the question, if many young people believe in gender equality, my definition of feminism, why is there a stigma behind the word? Feminism has evolved over time. Starting in the late 1840s, the suffragettes, first-wave feminists, sought for their right to vote. In 1920, the 19th Amendment allowing women to vote was passed. This prompted the second wave of feminism. From the 1960s to 1980s, feminists covered issues like equal pay, sexuality, reproductive rights, and more. Feminists advocated through protests, burning of bras and diplomas, and expressive arts. In the 1990s, third-wave feminism began in order to continue unresolved issues from the second wave and clear any negative comments toward the movement. Gender identity and expression also became part of the conversation. Celebrities and YouTubers have used different media outlets and conferences to get the next generation involved and passionate about the feminist movement.
Feminism is when you treat women less than you treat anybody else. No, I don't. I mean, I'll stand up for myself, but I feel like women should be treated equally, but I don't really work towards that.
I think that feminism is like being against women and not treating them equally. I think it's really bad.
I think feminism is like the equality of both like male and females and like being treated the same. Yeah.
I think feminism is just pretty much equality for like a balance between women and men, like just in general. I wouldn't consider myself a feminist, but I do support what they do as long as it's like non-violent and stuff like that.
The feminism is the movement, the activism movement to me, to create a more open dialogue about equal gender rights, to open up people's minds about gender rights and equality, and a way to, in some respects, show people about female issues that you wouldn't necessarily hear about. Because I think feminism has a lot to do with gender equality, but also has a lot to do with opening up other genders to the idea that there's these issues that women go through as being women. Like, that's just the way that it is, that they need to protect and that need to be talked about. And so I think that feminism has kind of become a vehicle for issues that are like beyond just gender equality.
To be honest, I don't think I could properly represent everything that feminism is just from me. I don't know. I've actually kind of been going back and forth, seeing, or I guess kind of like determining or seeing whether or not I would be a true feminist or whatever. But I think I'm on my way. I'm on my way to becoming a feminist. I need to do a lot more. I just need to attain more knowledge and really focus myself a lot more on this subject and talk with more people about it and just get more information to be able to properly represent this movement, because I think it's a good one.
I think feminism is sort of standing for and with women from all walks of life, and being able to see the inequalities in the world for women of all different races and gender identities and expressions, and sort of say that like everyone should be of equal opportunity and of equal status in society.
I think that when people hear the word feminism, they automatically think of people burning their bras, not shaving their armpits, not shaving their legs, being man haters, shaving their heads, just being extreme. Hating men is the exact opposite of what feminism is. Feminism is about like standing up for your own rights as a woman. Feminism is about having equal rights for everyone. Feminism is about opening up dialogues and having conversations. Feminism is about bringing light to topics that people don't usually talk about because they're women-dominated topics. It shouldn't be about what you do, how you act, or what you wear, or how you dress, or who you sleep with, or who you interact with, because that has very little to do with how you identify as a feminist. I know so many feminists who I really strongly believe are feminists, probably who identify more with that word than I do, who shave their armpits, who wear bras, who date men, who love men, who are married, like who are normal people in society, or what we would deem as normal people in society, and they are for equal rights, and they are women in the world.
And just simply put, I think lots of people, when they hear the word feminism, they have a very certain like image that pops into their head, and I hate that, because like sort of what I've been saying, like I think feminism is so complex and so interesting, and there's so many, you know, it's like rooted in politics and morals and ethics and society and gender studies and sexuality and like all of these interesting aspects of life, and to sort of like reduce it down to something that's like frivolous is so incredibly offensive to me, because those are just people who do that, I think, are people who are just trying to avoid that there's anything to even pay attention to. I think those negative feelings probably come from the same place that necessitates the need for feminism in the first place. The belief that sort of like women don't know what's best for them and don't know that they don't know their own strengths. I think that all women have very unique issues that stem from a certain idea, which is like women don't know. Like they don't really know what's best for them. And so I mean, I think that, you know, when you get a group of women together saying like, actually we do know what we're talking about, that doesn't necessarily change people's minds. And so people who still have negative feelings about feminists, I think, are just like they're choosing not to change, even though they have proof in front of them that like women can fend for themselves.
I mean, I think labels are inevitable. We all label people wherever we go, especially if we don't know them, just because there's nothing else to, you know, examine that person with, except with labels of what we already know. And sometimes that can be restricting, but I mean, that's kind of the whole process of meeting and interacting with people, is like, you have to, you know, give your own opinion like towards them, not like verbally, maybe it's just in your head, but I mean, that's the first step to meeting somebody and finding out all about them. So sometimes it's positive and it, you know, makes you want to go up to them and go talk to them and, you know, find out more about them. And sometimes it's negative, where you're like, wow, that person looks like someone I wouldn't want to interact with, and then you cut yourself off from them. So yeah, it really depends on the person.
Labels are an interesting topic. for one. I think that in the ways of labels being destructive are when people get really stuck in labels and really get like hooked on this idea that you can only be one thing. Like, I feel like in this society, maybe not as much as it used to be, but you know, like 3 or 4 years ago, if you stated that you were something, you had to say that. So like let's say in the context of this documentary, I said I'm a feminist, and then, you know, one day ran out the door and did something that people would deem as like not being very feminist. Like, then people automatically are like, well, you're not a feminist anymore. So I think that labels can be pretty destructive when people get really hung up on them and kind of get stuck in this idea that if you identify as one thing and you hang on to one type of label, that you have to be that label. I think labels can be constructive when it comes to making a statement, like being an activist. I think part of being an activist, part of standing up for what you believe in, is kind of labeling yourself in the moment. You know, like, if you're gonna be a feminist, label yourself a feminist. If you're doing something for the feminist movement, say I'm a feminist. Like, don't be afraid of that. That's not something to be afraid of. It might not necessarily be something you want to say in all contexts of your life, because a lot of people are very adverse to that word, feminism. A lot of people are kind of very taken aback by it, don't necessarily want to be involved with people who are feminists. But I think that if you're, you know, doing something for the cause, being involved in a protest, being involved in like a gathering or like some kind of community aspect, I think labels can be very constructive because it makes people feel like they're not alone. Like, when you label yourself, it automatically creates a community.
Wow, what a journey that was. But did I answer the question, if many young people believe in gender equality, my definition of feminism, why is there a stigma behind the word? I think so. The main reason that there is a stigma is because there's a misunderstanding or misinterpretation of what feminism actually means. We saw in the beginning of the video that some people actually believed that feminism was almost a synonym of sexism, and that all feminists were just man-haters. Well, that's actually not true, and feminism loves all genders and is actually fighting against sexism. The second reason that people might not want to call themselves a feminist is because even though they agree with what feminism stands for based on their definition, they feel they don't know enough knowledge to call themselves a feminist. And although I think it's really important to research and understand what the feminism movement is all about, it saddens me that people feel they have to be up to a certain standard to make a change. And the final reason that there is a stigma is because the people who are in power, who don't think there's anything wrong, are saying that these feminists, these people who want equality, are crazy. So now the question is, how do we destigmatize feminism? What are the crazy things we have to do? Because I'm so not radical.